I assume Dennis will be jumping in here at some point when he gets a better connection, but we're going to go ahead and get started with call to order and roll call. So I'm going to call this meeting of the Town Council special meeting for July the 9th at 8 a.m. to order, and roll call, please, Helen.
Mr. Carlton.
Here.
Ms. Owens.
Here.
Mr. Kuhn. Mr. Bergeron.
Here.
Ms. Giello.
Here.
Mr. Gallagher.
Here.
Mayor Mamula.
Yes. All right, Rick, agenda will stand as presented, I assume?
Yes.
All right, we have two orders of new business this morning. The first is Council Bill number 26, Series 2020. This is an emergency ordinance to amend ordinance number 14 requiring face coverings. Tim?
Actually, Rick's one.
Yeah.
Rick did the memo.
Excellent.
I'll jump in and do this. So we actually prepared two emergency ordinances for council review. The first one we want to talk about is the one that would amend the face covering ordinance that the council passed in early May of this year. And so basically the amendment of that involves the creation of a mandatory mask zone. And that zone is outlined and depicted as part of a map that will be embedded and attached to this ordinance. Basically runs, Ridge Street on the east, the river along the west, from the south end of French, and includes the area around the base of the gondola. It includes the Riverwalk, Tiger Dredge parking lot, Riverwalk lawn, and then it includes up to the south Main Street Station, La Cima. And so the part of the ordinance that I think that has been amended for this is that while people are in an outdoor public place located within this mandatory mask zone, they are required to have a mask on. It is no longer discretionary if they're only within 6 feet. That rule still applies within the town to any area outside of the mandatory mask zone. But when they're in an outdoor public place within that area, they're required to have a mask on. People need to keep in mind that the key words are outdoor public place. There are private residences, there are private businesses that are not necessarily open to the public in there, and they still operate under the old rules that only if they're having interaction with people. And within somebody's private property and residence, this does not apply. It only applies to a private property situation if that property is generally open to the public, which is how we're doing it at the base of the gondola. That property is owned by the ski area, but it's open to the public. So we're requiring it there. We did add a couple of exceptions to this in addition to the ones that were already in the ordinance. And one of those is that they are not required to have the mask on while eating or drinking and within that mandatory mask zone. And then also if they are a performer, as long as there is 25 feet distance from spectators is maintained. And we did that primarily because of some performances that are being done in and around the outdoor Riverwalk area and at the lawn, but we can create the separation that we need there. If people, I know a question came up about if somebody's in their car, it does cross over Highway 9, goes right through at the very south end, right, where it goes over into the La Cima Main Street Station area. A car would not, within their car is not considered a outdoor public place. So people are not required. If somebody is riding along the path in that area, they're required to have their mask on. Plain and simple. And this is an infraction, so it only is a $50 fine, but I think it's important, maybe Eric, for you to reiterate, so that people don't have false expectations or thinking we're going out and going to start writing everybody that's not doing it. That's a tool that we can use, and you know, there's a question, how do we collect fines from people out of state? Well, there's a process for that, whether it's a ticket for not having a mask on, or a ticket for illegally parking, or a ticket for, you know, shoplifting. There's a way that out of state people are cited and collected. So
I'm going to say you're going to have to really be a nuisance to get a fine, at least at this phase. We're looking more at an ambassador program where this is really, to start, will be more about education. But if somebody wants to be obstinate about it and they want to give the ambassador or the CSO a hard time, and if the PD needs to be called, there needs to be a fee structure so that we can address that kind of situation. Like, I don't think there's any doubt right now in the country with what's going on immediately around us, in the states immediately around us. We're in the middle of a firestorm of a virus right now. And this is an action that this town council can take to potentially stem the time in our community to keep our businesses open. That's what this is all about. And if people don't want to be compliant with this, we're going to try to educate them. And then if they're going to be obstinate and they're going to mistreat the CSOs or our frontline workers, then there'll be a fine structure. And that's how we see this proceeding. We're hoping that the only thing that ever happens is one of our ambassadors approaches somebody, says, "I'm sorry, you're in a mandatory mask zone," and they say, "Oh, I'm sorry, let me put my mask on." So that is the hope. And that may be me thinking the best of people, but that's where we're going to start. Questions for staff on this? Erin?
So I know I started with a question about, so there isn't a time limit on this. Would we consider like this starts at 8 a.m. or something? Like, I'm thinking about people who want to run, who run in town early in the morning, that sort of thing. I know, you know, there's nobody, there isn't this risk. So I'm just curious if people would consider that.
I would. I don't know. I mean, I'd defer to staff if this is going to be an unwieldy exception. I can see, you know, because let's face it, someone's running through here at 8 a.m. in the morning, you know, no one's going to say anything to them. I mean, there's no one around at 8 a.m. in the morning. So it's almost like the spirit of the law opposed to the letter of the law. But I don't know what the staff thinks about, you know, starting it at 8 a.m.
You
I
know,
just feel reluctant to create more confusion.
Yeah, me too. I kind of feel like, you know, obviously we're empowering the CSOs to have discretion. You know, the initial action on this ordinance is going to be really, the intent is to give them tools to warn and to try to improve the situation. So, you know, I think I agree with Kelly's comment. You know, I did, in the effort to not create confusion, I think we rely on discretion as opposed to trying to capture every one of these one-off situations.
I agree.
Okay, and speaking of, another question would be, what are we going to implement as far as, you know, what we call mask ambassadors or the CSOs? I mean, do we have a program, a mechanism where we're going to have kind of some heightened presence down there?
So, yes, starting today, CSOs will be reassigned. We have 2 full-time CSOs, and they'll be covering 7 days a week, reassigned, working 10 a.m. they work 10-hour shifts, so they'll work 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Working, spending the big majority of their shift will be in the mandatory mask zone. We're looking at, you know, kind of reassigning one additional staff person to work part of their hours down there. During this time, we've developed a job description where we can hopefully we're going to reach out to some of our part-time, our seasonal people that were furloughed, before that may see if they want some hours to come back and work and do some stuff, or as an opportunity for some of our people that may already be part-time people if they want some additional hours or even some overtime hours to make some extra money to be there. So we have, you can't just, we got to get a system. We got to try to coordinate and schedule how people are. You got to provide some training to those people. The CSOs can hit the ground running. This is what they do. So, before we can ramp it up though, it will realistically, it's going to take a little bit of time. And then we're looking at ordering some yellow high-vis vests that somebody would say that said code enforcement on them and the town logo. And, some people just may grab a vest and go down there, and you can do it, Jeffrey.
Yeah.
Talk to people.
Yeah. I think kind of a joint public service would be good for you.
Rick, you want to speak to the signage?
Yeah, so the signage is going up, assuming it's probably going to be up by close of business today. I don't have the picture in front of me, but they're making it's a 24 by 24 inch sign that will say mandatory mask zone. Shannon, can you remind me what we put at the bottom of that? Something about violations set per town code will be enforced or something, but.
Yeah, violations subject to fine per town code.
Yeah. So those are going to be put up in a number of places. We're hoping to have 25 or so right now, because obviously they can only make so many so fast. And we'll concentrate along Main Street first, and then we'll branch out from there. We also have to buy additional equipment to mount these things because we've run out of freestanding poles and things like that are used. And so we'll be mounting some of them on some smaller barricades and some of them on regular just poles in the middle of the walkway. So,
Rick, along with those, and there again, I don't know if this is even possible, but along with the kind of the cut and dry legalese about the mask, it'd be nice just to have a little small thing underneath that says, please wear a mask, help us stay open. The message that we've been kind of trying to promote up to now that hasn't really seemed to work, but more of just a reminder that this isn't, we don't want to be punitive. We just want to keep our businesses open and our residents healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Gary, you doing okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
I probably won't last the whole thing, but I know on these emergency ordinances, you need a super majority.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not feeling great, so I know I'm not going to last.
Okay.
You guys we can have more discussion on that if we want to get a vote going on this.
Real quick, Rick, is there a reason we didn't include City Market? That the Parkway Place, the Parkway Plaza, whatever it's called?
It's not public property.
Gotcha.
I don't think we've had a problem in City Market.
Oh, that's one of the places that's well.
And on that, and what about the village?
I don't know. Again, I'm not aware that there's a problem at the village. So
They do have the farmer's market. I know that Wendy texted Kelly and I about it, which is, it's a good point that because there's a farmer's market, it could make sense that
We
would be.
did include
the farmer's market is in Main Street Station, and we included that.
It's
right?
in the village right now.
Oh.
You know what, guys?
Last couple weekends, it's been in the village.
I might make a suggestion. Maybe we pass this today now while Gary's with us, and we've got another meeting on Tuesday. We could amend it Tuesday if that's not too much of a pain for Tim.
Oh, it's not a pain for me at all.
Okay. And we're just talking about amending a mask, or amending it.
Just amending the map, because this might take a little more discussion. Yeah.
Any other questions from for staff? We do have a handful of questions. Tim, what's your feeling on this whole ADA thing? You know, if somebody says that they're exempt from wearing a mask, what's the, you know, there's a couple questions that sort of revolve around that.
Well, the exemption, it's already in the mask ordinance. It talks about persons for whom a face covering would cause impairment of health due to an existing condition. Every mask rule that I've seen has some similar language. Certainly the federal law would continue to apply. And if somebody can demonstrate or make a claim that they have a health problem, I think the town of Breckenridge will have to respect that as being exempt.
I don't think they have to demonstrate. I think they just have to state it.
Yeah, that misspoke. We can't inquire into the nature of the disability. If somebody says they have a disability, we take it at face value.
Like I said multiple times, this is the new service dog. That's what this is. Or this.
For private business, does this put them in a protected class in accordance to the ADA? I mean, can a private business still refuse service if they can't wear a mask in a restaurant or retail?
I think the Americans with Disabilities Act, Dick, would apply to those businesses.
Okay.
There's a couple other questions. One about drinking coffee while you walk down Main Street. You know, Hal, I think you can take a sip of coffee and put your mask back on. I don't think this is you go buy a coffee and keep your mask around your neck. And if somebody doesn't have a mask on their person when they're stopped, you know, I will tell you, at this point where we are in this pandemic, if you have showed up to Breckenridge without a mask, you need to go purchase one. You know, I know some of the towns are handing out free masks. I think we are beyond the point of coddling people into wearing masks. There are multiple locations where you can go purchase them now. I think we've done quite a bit of work as a state to inform people about masks. I don't know where you could possibly come from at this point that you didn't either fly here or drive here from a state that requires masks and think that you're going to walk into Breck without a mask. So honestly, CSOs will have them on their person, and I think they'll use their discretion to hand them out. But we're not handing out masks to every person that claims that they don't own one. It is time for people to grow up. If you show up in town without a mask, you need to go purchase one. People sitting at a restaurant, you know, I think our point has been once they're sat, they can take their masks off. I think everybody uses their own discretion, whether they have their make people put their masks back on when the server approaches the table. I mean, the proper thing to do would be for people to have their masks on anytime they talk. That is the proper thing. I think it's going to be tough for us to enforce every little bit of this. And again, this is trying to get a certain amount of compliance. We know we will never have 100% compliance. It is too difficult without having 100 ambassadors out there to handle every situation. If we can move the needle on this and get up to 80 or 90% compliance, I will be happy that we have done this. So,
you know, Eric, I mean, and I think I'll reiterate, there's going to be lunkheads that are going to say, yeah, I have a medical condition. There's going to be lunkheads that will carry around an empty coffee cup and saying, you know, I'm about to sip them. You know, I just think, like I say, if we can just get the people, the compliance person to be reminded that, yeah, we're all in this together. And yeah, I'm sure there's going to be people pushing the envelope, and you can't do much about that. And, you know, it's just, I just kind of remind us all, it's worse to be them than it is to hang out with them. So, you know, I think this is a step in the right direction. And if we can skim off the top of, you know, and kind of increase the compliance a little bit, I think that's what I'm looking for in this thing.
And the final question here, bikers and joggers often don't carry anything. I will tell you, as a mountain biker who bikes anywhere from 6 to 7 days a week, I always carry a mask and I always have something around my neck to pull up over my face. So that is a lame excuse for anybody because they are biking or jogging. If you don't want to wear the mask, go bike or jog either in the backcountry or on the bike path where it is not a mandatory requirement to have it. When you get into this zone, the mask goes on. That's it. That's just how this works. We've got to get better compliance. We are way too close right now to a big spike that's going to shut this county down. And none of us can afford that. So this is our effort to try to stem that tide. You know, you can see what's going on in the country right now. I mean, the states that are blowing up like Arizona and Texas were way too late to this game and are having trouble. I do not want that to happen to us. So anything further from the council?
I just think it's fair to say that we'll continue looking at this and reviewing it. And if we need to strengthen the enforcement, that sort of thing, you know, or redefine and, you know, as was mentioned, you know, look at the different areas. This isn't the end all be all in this conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Aaron. Okay. I'm going to close public comment right there. And is there a motion?
I move we pass ordinance 26, an emergency ordinance 2020, the title which has been read into the record.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Roll call, please, Helen.
Mr. Kuhn,
You're muted, Dennis.
Ms. Owens,
Yes.
Mr. Bergeron,
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher,
Yes.
Ms. Giello,
Yes.
Mr. Carlton,
Yes.
Mayor Mamula.
Yes. All right. Emergency ordinance goes into effect immediately. We move on to emergency ordinance authorizing the suspension or revocation of a town of Breckenridge business and occupational tax license for a violation of a Summit County public health order. Rick or Tim?
I will take this one too. You know, part of the discussion we've been having recently with the council is what are some of the tools we need in our toolbox to address problems with businesses that aren't following the rules or doing things. And we issue all businesses a business license, and in the town code, we have a particular chapter that deals with our business and occupational license and tax. And there's certain things in there that are reasons that we could take a business to a hearing, if they violate certain things and certain conditions in that chapter. Well, one of the things that we wanted to add in there is that if they violate a county public health order. And so we're doing this emergency ordinance to add a section in there that makes any violation by the licensee of a public health order as one of the reasons that we could subject them to request a hearing in front of a hearing officer, which is the finance director for the town. And then if there was cause found for a violation of a public health order, they would be, their license would be suspended for 30 days and they would have a fine of $2,650, which is the maximum fine we can impose through the town code on that. So that's what you have in front of you.
Excellent. Thank you, Rick. Questions for staff?
Yeah, I'd just like to add also that this is, this is about discretion. This is about, a proper system depending upon the severity of the violation. Typically, unless we have a very flagrant violation with just total willful and wanton disregard for that, we would not go directly to a hearing. We would typically follow like we do. This is what covers all of our this is the same code that covers our short-term rental accommodations. So, if we have where we have a complaint about, people leaving their trash out at a short-term rental, right? We contact the people, we warn them, we educate them on what the rules are. And so where you have a business that may let somebody in without a mask on, the first time we see that, we're gonna do a warning to make sure they're aware. If we have flagrant violations and irregard them, this is just another tool again that allows us to to go ahead and hold a hearing. So,
Eric, I might also point out that this just adds an additional reason why a hearing could be held on the boat license. This is not a summary, an immediate suspension. It requires a hearing in front of the finance director. The licensee has to be provided with at least 20 days notice of the hearing. So there's due process built into the ordinance already. Again, we're just adding one additional bases for setting a hearing.
Thank you, Tim. Other questions for staff? Okay, there is. Yep.
I have a comment. I know I voted for the curfew before, or at least seeing how it goes. I think that, and I'm going to vote for this, my concern is not with the business owners and them following the rules. My concern is more with the patrons and behaviors, and the town allowing for space for risky behavior in the time of COVID. I think as a council, we still need to remain agile. And if this, and again, I could be wrong. So, if I am wrong, I hope I'm wrong. But if this does allow for hotspots within our community, I think that we need to take another look at this as far as a curfew goes. Because again, I am not worried about business compliance here at all. That is not my concern. It is much more of a concern of allowing for space for people to come together and drink, and what that does to masks and COVID spread. So that would be shutting it down, not just, if there's a hot spot, I would like us to relook at the curfew idea and not just shutting businesses down or what the punitive measures that we're talking about, but really look at whether this is a good function in the time of COVID.
Aaron, to that point, we are going to have a discussion right after this on the curfew time. And I don't know that all of us share your belief that all the owners are doing the right thing. I think there are a few standouts that really don't care what the rules are. They're violating them intentionally. And while we really do not want to punish everybody at the same time, we're gonna need to give Rick and his staff the opportunity to clamp down on some of these. There is a Q&A function at the bottom of the screen for anybody listening. We will open this up to public hearings since this is an emergency ordinance we're passing. We got a question from Linda about seeing a bunch of employees with no masks on. Linda, in particular, this is what this is for. This is for non-compliance really by businesses that are allowing this kind of risky behavior. One thing that we are really concerned about, there are a handful of places in town that after restaurants close, a lot of restaurant staff like to go hang out in those places, and the laws seem to drift away. And we are afraid that if there will be a crisis, a health crisis for Breck, it will be those employees that are gathered at one place that then go back to their respective businesses and spread the virus. So this will give the staff the opportunity to handle those kind of complaints and concerns. We're gonna probably handle this on a complaint basis where somebody would, like you would say, hey, this is what I witnessed. Rick would then send his team out to deal with it. If we felt that they violated our public health order or the county's order, there would potentially be a warning, or we would go right to a penalty phase. So depending on how flagrant the violation was. So thanks for that question. I'll give another couple of seconds here if anybody wants to type a question in, and then we will move on.
The only thing I wanted to say is that it seems like this is so important to our other businesses who aren't even open yet. We cannot have businesses open that aren't doing the absolute best job they can to help our community stay open. Because if there are people who are taking this lightly, there are still many, many businesses that aren't even open. And it just seems so important that we hold people to the highest standard right now.
Absolutely, Kelly. There's if we really think we can get schools open this fall, we have to support the school board and the school system by trying to make sure that our infection rate in this county is down. And as a town council for Breckenridge, this is what we need to do in our, in our sphere of control to help do that. So, all right, I'm going to close public comment. There are no more open questions. Is there a motion?
I move we pass an emergency ordinance authorizing the suspension or revocation of Town of Breckenridge business and occupational tax licenses for a violation of the Summit County Public Health Order.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion by council? Roll call, please, Helen.
Mr. Bergeron,
Yes.
Mr. Carlton,
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher,
Yes.
Ms. Giello,
Aaron?
Aaron, you're on mute.
Sorry.
Mr. Coon,
Blink twice if you're a hostage.
Blink twice.
Ms. Owens,
Yes.
Mayor Mamula.
Yes. All right. Emergency ordinance.
Eric, hang on just 1 second. Helen, how did you record Mr. Kuhn's vote?
I recorded as absent.
Yes.
Oh, there's a yes.
Oh, we got a yes. Okay.
Thank you, Tim.
I was
right.
going to say the same thing, Tim. I was kind of worried about it because I think Aaron and Dennis were vague as usual. So I want to make sure that we get the 5 votes that are required for an emergency ordinance to pass.
My mute button wasn't working. That's not-
Okay.
Oh, my goodness.
I got your back, Tim. If you ever, I got your back.
Jeff.
Greatly appreciated.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it for the ordinances for today. We're going to move on to an additional discussion concerning restaurant closure times, followed by some other COVID discussions. So Aaron and Gary, at any point that you have to leave, that would be totally fine. Or if you want to just listen via the phone, that's fine too. Rick?
I just want to tee it up here so you guys can talk some more. I know that some of you have had additional conversations with people and that you've been doing your own little research. I will let you know that Eric and I were part of the county recovery committee meeting yesterday, and this subject was brought up. We asked for the consideration of a countywide public health order closing all bars and restaurants by 10:30, 11 p.m. And Scott Vargo said that they have those decisions are basically made apparently by the Board of Health, which is the county commissioners. They have a Board of Health meeting today, and he wanted to get some feedback from those people on the call. Every town, Silverthorne, Dillon, Frisco, obviously us, said they would support it. The Amy Wineland, the public health director, says she would wholeheartedly support that. And actually she thanked Breckenridge for their leadership in what they're doing currently to not only push this early closure, but also the mandatory mask zone that she anticipated that you were going to pass on that. So I don't know. The Board of Health is meeting at 3 p.m. today. I'd be surprised if they acted very quickly on this because I think they just hadn't really thought about it before. So I'm not sure what it would take for them to do it if they would at a county level. And so I think, it's up to us to decide if we want to wait for that or if we want to go ahead and do something or not here locally. So
Elizabeth asked me during the meeting why we wanted the county to do it rather than us just do it ourselves. And while most of the time I like the fact that we go off and do our own thing, in the face of a public health crisis, I think it's important that we operate more as a county. I think the rules need to be the same. I don't think it is fair to our nightclub scene to be the only one in the county that is closed early, or even our restaurants to be the only ones that are closed early. Whether that is 11 or midnight or whatever that time eventually gets decided on, or maybe it doesn't, but it'd be better if it was a county-wide measure than just a town of Breck measure.
Also, I would hate to be pushing people to go to bars in another town, right?
Absolutely, Aaron. Absolutely. Yeah.
Hey, Rick, what's going on with the state closed or what's the ruling with the state with nightclubs?
I mean, I know they came back and said that they weren't going to allow bars to open, but the fact is they're still allowing that exception to occur, that which is such a farce, right? If you can act like you're operating as a restaurant, well, all that means is you need some cold hot dogs, in your somewhere. I mean, there's nothing to say what that looks like or what that means if you're operating as a restaurant. So
the intention was that bars, nightclubs would not be open, or would not be open to a certain hour, or what is, if.
Well, they said they're not going to be open.
Okay.
And then the governor said they're not going to be open, with the exception that if they form a partnership and learn how to serve food or partner with a restaurant and function more as a restaurant, then they will be allowed to open.
How does food make them safer?
They're trying to make them a restaurant and not a bar.
I know, but I'm saying, but in the spirit of the law, how does, I don't understand, of course, I'm asking you to explain somebody else's ruling, so that's unfair. So
The theory, Jeffrey, is that if people are eating, they remain in their seats.
Okay.
Sort of what Jeff Cox was telling us in his letter, that
Yeah.
the intent is to keep people at their tables. I mean, that's what restaurants really do. There is no true mingling at a restaurant. Nobody's bars are open in restaurants right now where mingling potentially occurs. Even in restaurants that serve food, those bars are very limited in the amount of people that can be open. So that's the intent. The intent is, if you're a restaurant, people sit down, they're confined to their area, as opposed to a nightclub where people are all over the place. If you can think back that far to the days when you used to go out,
Yeah,
that was like.
mm-hmm. Those when the glasses were made of wood.
So I feel like I've definitely made a bit of a change since Tuesday. I was definitely more hesitant to take an action that would affect very specific businesses, and I'm comfortable with maybe waiting a few days to see what the county does. But honestly, I think that if Amy Wineland is saying she appreciates Breckenridge's leadership in this, I feel like that's probably the right thing to do for our community. I mean, we know that if we take this step, other towns and possibly the county will get very serious about considering this. And I'm very concerned that if we wait a couple of weeks for the county to make any sort of move, that we will have an outbreak here that we won't be able to control. I mean, we know that testing is taking a long time. We know that there are so many cases that contact tracing is really not able to, work in a way that would contain anything. So, I mean, I hear you definitely. I absolutely hear you. I mean, the best thing would be for the entire county to do this. But I think maybe, in true form, the way to get the entire county to do this is for Breckenridge to do it and then help everybody get on board. I mean, I've talked to, some doctors and some restaurant owners over the last couple of days who really believe that at 10:30, 11 o'clock, the scene does change despite having a basket of chips on your table. People are shouting to each other over the music, which encourages, projectile sort of spit and things coming out, and they're sipping a beer the whole time. So it's very hard for anyone to say that they need to have a mask on the entire time they're at their seat. I just think there are enough really difficult things to control after 10:30 in a restaurant or a bar, that the most responsible thing for our community to avoid an outbreak and shut down completely would be for us to impose a curfew.
Hey, Eric, can I remind the council of what the process would be on this?
Please.
Tim and I both feel that this is such an important issue that this is why the council needs to provide the input to me on what direction you want. We feel that this would be handled by an order issued from the town manager's office, like we've done before, that would create the closing of this. It doesn't require an emergency ordinance or a legislative action on the part of the council. It requires myself to issue an order. But so I think what I will be looking for from you is that a majority of you either want or don't want this right now. And I think if a majority of you want this to happen, then we would have the order prepared and issued today or whenever you decide. So that's the process that we would use.
Thank you, Rick. Aaron, how do you feel about this?
So with the county, how long do we think we could get an answer about whether this is tough?
Well, they're meeting at 3 o'clock today, and I guess we would get a feel for what direction, if any, they're going to take based on that. Certainly, if you wanted to wait and see, then our other option would be to do something. I mean, you could tell me if the county is going to do it, then we won't do it. If the county's not going to do something within the next week or two, then you want me to act. Because that's all you got to do is give me the direction you want, and you're welcome to listen in. You can. I don't know if they take public comment at the Board of Health meetings. I've asked Peyton to dial into it and monitor and get a feel for what's happening at that meeting today. So
I guess I'd like to revisit on Tuesday. I know that my gut is to be very clear and very honest, my gut is telling me curfew. I haven't seen in quite some time what it's like to be out after 10:30. I'd like to look and see what it looks like right now. And I do believe in what I said as far as what does it do if we have a curfew here, and the rest of the county doesn't? Are we overloading the buses? Are we, or not? Or are encouraging people to drink and drive? I agree with what Kelly was saying about the leaders, and again, it sounds like other people are agreeing with my initial statement, but I think I'd like until Tuesday.
Dick?
I agree with that. I think the best solution is countywide with the sharing of employees. A lot of the workforce here in Breckenridge lives in Silverthorne, and the countywide is the best approach. I would like to wait till Tuesday, discuss it again on Tuesday, and in the meantime, strongly encourage our PD to visit these late night places between 10 p.m. and midnight multiple times over the weekend, and let's hear from the PD what is really going on, because we're getting lots of emails and letters and anecdotal comments and everything else. I'd like our PD to make visits, and if there's willful, blatant disregard to the health order, I hope we will enact the emergency ordinance that we passed earlier in this meeting. We can do it this weekend based on that ordinance, through the bolt licensing, we can start the process. So I guess, I'm open to have this discussion again on Tuesday.
And one more thing, I totally agree with Dick. I think that's a great idea. I also know that we need to be looking not just at the behavior of the businesses, and I know that this isn't fair, but COVID just isn't fair, but we have to be looking at the behaviors of the patrons. I do feel like business can do everything, they can follow all the rules, but what's not fair is that we really have to be looking at the behaviors of the people visiting.
Aaron, you can set this thing up any way you want in a restaurant or a bar. The people still do what they feel like they're going to do. I mean, I have countless people that walk in with a mask and then go to the bathroom, and I have to remind them, you have to have your mask on when you leave the table, or when they leave the restaurant, they have their masks off, and by then they're leaving. So you're totally right. This is not necessarily on the businesses. This is really the fact that we're creating an environment where this kind of stuff can happen and spread this disease pretty easily. And I think that's our concern. Dennis, can you chime in, do you think?
I'm trying, Eric. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I'm in agreement with giving Rick the authority to impose a 10:30 curfew.
Thank you, Dennis. Jeffrey?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with the curfew. I will talk and, well, obviously this is not going to fly, but I don't know about a 10:30. I'd be open to suggestions about what the actual hour is. I don't think this can be operated in a healthy manner, just because of the whole mechanism of bar. But yeah, I'll wait till Tuesday. But right now, I would vote for some sort of curfew, 10:30 or 11 or something of the sort.
Yeah, I think I would vote for an 11 o'clock curfew right now too. I got to tell you, I think if we do this, the county would follow us. I mean, I'm okay waiting for the county and seeing how it goes this weekend, if that's what everybody wants to do. But honestly, I would be fine doing this right now. And, you know, really, we have Dennis, Kelly, Jeffrey, and myself. So we can have a, you know, what say everybody to 11 o'clock? Thumbs up from Kelly.
Yes. I think that's a great place to start.
Okay. You got that, Rick?
So you want me to get an order written today to go into effect
Tonight.
for 11 o'clock curfew on all businesses we're going to look at restaurants and bar types of open for the serving of alcoholic beverages and or food. We're going to look at language on there that says that you probably shouldn't, if it has to be, they have to be shut down, closed, no one in there doing anything by 11 p.m. And generally that means they shouldn't seat anybody beyond the 10 p.m., which is an hour before, which is what we've seen in other places on that order. We can be that. So are you okay with that?
Yep. Jeffrey,
All right.
Dennis, I think everybody's.
We'll work on it. We'll get it out today.
Okay. What else you got for COVID? Additional COVID discussion? I got two things I wanted to bring up.
So we have to. So the drop dead date on the Ai Weiwei statue is Friday. And so Shannon sent out things. We think we've addressed the concerns that were raised with having that thing up over the winter. So unless you tell me differently right now or do something, we're going to go ahead and let them know that we're going to move forward with that installation.
Everybody good with this?
Yeah.
Yes. What were the, sorry.
Yes.
What were the thoughts again? When will it come down?
I don't know.
Okay.
I think they're looking at like summer of 2021.
So the beginning of the summer or the end of this, is that what are we thinking through the winter or are we thinking through like for a full year?
It would be through the winter.
It'd go up late fall and be up over the winter.
I think it'll go up end of July, beginning of August, and through the winter.
Okay.
The other thing I want to let you know is that if you saw the obituary on Phyllis Martinez, and you know Gary was a long time town manager here, and so they've asked for any donations in Phyllis's name to be made to a couple of the local places, and so I was going to do something on behalf of the town of Breckenridge, and I thought I would just do, instead of just one, to the film fest or one to the foundation, maybe just split it and do one to do it to both of them. Is that all right? Under Phyllis's name on behalf of the town of Breckenridge?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's great, Rick.
Phyllis was a wonderful member of this community.
Yes.
And, you know, Gary has done so much from the time he spent as town manager to, you know, bringing life back to the film festival with Phyllis's, you know, with Phyllis right at his side. So anything we can do, I think it would be great.
Well, and I think they really want to do a celebration of life, but I think Gary's very realistic that it'll probably be next year. And I said, you know, certainly we'll work with them on a venue for that. So, yeah. All right, I think that's it. And we have a really big, heavy meeting on Tuesday. So we're going to start at 3 o'clock again, back to normal.
Hey, Rick, I have two things I wanted to talk about real quick. More just heads up-y stuff. At some point, we're going to have to talk about what we're going to do with Main Street going into the fall for walkable Main. And then I think there's a broader discussion that I would like to get staff to start thinking about how we can support businesses that have the opportunity to either tent or do something going into the winter. You know, there are plenty of places that have decks. Do we, you know, how do we push forward the opportunity for somebody with a deck to be able to tent that and then heat it going forward into the winter? Because we're gonna, you know, if we can't get out of this this phase we're in with this safer at home phase, if we can't move into protect your neighbors, that's going to limit everybody to a 50-person occupancy. We're going to need to have something. What I don't want to do is reactionary. I don't want to operate on a reactionary basis. I want to think about this prior to, so that we can get staff ready to implement whatever kind of rules we're going to need. Similar to things that we did outside of the walkable area with allowing people to use either private space or whatever, things that we would not allow normally. But there's plenty of decks in town that if, you know, I think if we allow owners to tent and heat it for the winter, I think that would be the proper thing to do. Dick?
And I agree, and it won't just be restaurants. I've talked to a couple ski shop owners that would like to, you know, maybe capture a parking space or something, and put something out there to do their ski returns and whatever they can outside, and that just helps everybody. You know, that's safer. I'd also like to add to the discussion for Tuesday. I know it's a big meeting, but you know, we're you know, at the 11 o'clock curfew, and I'm super conflicted on this. It's you know, we've got to do what's right for the community and the safety of the community. However, I do think we may want to consider for those businesses that are unable to open. So that would maybe include, you know, wedding and you know, group business and that kind of thing. You know, maybe another round of rent assistance for those that health orders prevent them from opening, or we can craft it somehow. But I would like to see us have that discussion to try to get.
Dick, I think that's a great idea.
We need a list of what's still closed. I think we really need to. I think we really need to find out exactly what we're talking about too, Dick.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
There are other things that are not closed that we just have not talked about. So, we're gonna,
So what we could do is we can message out through the business community that if you're unable to open due to public health rules that are not allowing your business to open, that you should submit some requests to the town. I mean, we still have that grant type process out there for some rent relief or something, and then we can determine and review why the business isn't open.
Yeah.
Right, and we would, once we get a feel for what that might look like, it shouldn't be a lot. We would come back and give you an update on that, okay?
Yeah, but these are, I agree, Rick, and you know, to come prepared would be great, and sooner as opposed to later. But it's not a lot, but they're important to town. So
No, I'm not. Yeah. Okay. I'm not downplaying that.
no, yeah, no. I'd like to have staff do some reaching out and give us a sense of kind of what we're thinking about, because we'll probably have to appropriate some funds for something like this.
Absolutely. I think we're all in agreement on this. And I think, Anthony asked, and Anthony's one of the guys that's going to be affected in his upstairs area. When will we revisit this? I think we revisit this curfew continuously. We will talk about it on Tuesday, Anthony. Right after the weekend's over, if you would send us a, letter of your observations, we would appreciate it. Any information we can get is helpful. We are not trying to single anybody out, but this is just one of those situations with a lot of other businesses that are still not allowed to open. So anything else? Yes, Jeffrey?
Yeah, one thing, how are we dressed? Are we, along with these mask ambassadors, CSO, are they kind of keeping an eye on bicyclists going fast down a closed off Main Street and the skateboarders as well? Just want to hopefully throw that out there.
So what? Yes.
Okay.
It's not just going to be about masks. They're going to be down there looking. Mask is just one public health order now, or one order that we have. We also want them to continue to monitor the separation of tables in the outdoor seating areas. We want them to poke their head in businesses from time to time to still monitor that they're, following the rules that need to be followed, and that, the skateboarding, the bike issue, all of those types of things that are making that a safe and viable area for us is what we want them to be looking at while they're down there. So.
Any other matters? All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for taking the time this morning.
We're our community. We're doing our community neighborhood meeting tonight at 5:30. Doing a virtual meeting with the Wellington Lincoln Park neighborhood to talk traffic, safety, etc. So, Kelly will be on the panel representing the council and as a homeowner. But
Can someone send me a link to that?
Since you're the law and order candidate, Jeffrey, I think.
Yeah.
Jeffrey, did you get the email yesterday? It had yesterday morning had the link in the flyer.
Yeah, but I did like a mass deletion of email.
Okay. I'll send it to you again.
Last night, yeah.
Hey, Eric, did you talk to Jeffrey about housing committee?
I did. He said he'd be happy to do it, and he'll be there on Tuesday. So he just needs to send.
Oh yeah, I need a link for that too.
He needs the scheduling information for that.
Yeah.
Just so the rest of you know, Eric's asked Jeffrey to take over for Gary on the housing committee. So
there's no dress code or anything, is there?
There is, and there's no food.
That's all. There's been
Actually, that is not true, Jeffrey. We have good food at the housing committee.
Yeah, but it's virtual, right?
It comes from your.
But once we get back.
Oh,
to
okay.
Live meeting,
I don't know if I'll live that long. Yeah. Okay.
You can't lose another councilman, Jeffrey. You got to stay.
Yeah, I'm feeling good.
Okay. Anything else for the good of the order?
Nope.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. And thanks to all the participants that listened in this morning. We truly appreciate your concern for our town. So thank you.